fucking shit! Cunt!
We all have played games at some point in our life. It's the addictive nature of these graphical computer simulations, which are sometimes too realistic, that some of us don't even realize that there is an outside world. Not to forget, some players have made millions of dollars by just playing different games. But sometimes developers take video games for granted. Cyberpunk. Sorry, excuse me. Jokes aside, in general, the evolution of video games in the past few years is phenomenal, largely thanks to exponential increase in computing power and also the extreme support from the community. First, let's look at the early years of development in the gaming industry. The first recognized example of a game machine was unveiled by Dr. Edward Euler Condon at the New York World's Fair in 1940. The game, based on the ancient mathematical game of Nim, was played by about 50,000 people during the 6 months it was on display, with the computer reportedly winning more than 90% of the games. However, the first game system designed for commercial home use did not emerge until nearly 3 decades later, when Ralph Baer and his team released his prototype, the Brown Box, in 1967. The Brown Box was a vacuum tube circuit that could be connected to a television set and allowed 2 users to control cubes that chased each other on the screen. The Brown Box could be programmed to play a variety of games, including ping pong, checkers, and 4 sport games. The late 1970s and early 1980s experienced an impressive boom in the popularity of arcade gaming, bringing a serious commercial success. Specifically, the release of Space Invaders for arcade systems in 1978, which marked a new dawn for games. Arcades were filling up with players, and some serious money was coming in. After millions in quarters earned by Space Invaders, it would not be long until a successor in the most played arcade game mantle was once again taken up by a new contender. This was in the form of the beloved Pac-Man. In addition to gaming consoles becoming popular in commercial centers and chain restaurants in the US, the early 1970s also saw the advent of personal computers, and mass-produced gaming consoles became a reality. Technological advancements, such as Intel's invention of the world's first microprocessor, led to the creation of games such as Gunfight in 1975, the first example of a multiplayer human-to-human combat shooter. The NES was a best-selling console, producing games from 1985 to 1995. In 1987, Nintendo released The Legend of Zelda. The Nintendo Entertainment System established Nintendo literally as a household name. They doubled down and released their follow-up console, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, in 1990. This is where Nintendo dominates the game market. On the other side of the aisle, Sony had developed the first major disc-based console, the PlayStation, in 1994. The PlayStation introduced games like Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, and Silent Hill. These titles included extensive and impressive cutscenes, often including recorded dialogue. Games were getting closer and closer to being movie-like. The narratives were able to be more in-depth, moodier, and more atmospheric. A game like Silent Hill would never have succeeded in any system but the PlayStation. The atmosphere, the sound, and the graphics, they all hit the mark at the right place and time. The variety of the graphical powerhouse the consoles were at the time made a lasting impact on gaming. In 1996, the Nintendo 64, named for the 64-bit processing, was released to great fanfare. All of your favorite Nintendo characters were now in a fully realized 3D. A highlight was Super Mario 64. Not to be outdone, Sony released what is still the best-selling console of all time, the PlayStation 2. Released in 2000, the PS2 has sold over 150 million units. This console brought us hits like Final Fantasy X, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and our all-time favorite, Grand Theft Auto. Then comes the almighty Microsoft. They blew everyone away by releasing their very first console, the Xbox, in the 2000s. With blockbuster hits like Halo revolutionizing multiplayer, Microsoft was not to be trifled with. After the big players like Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft joined the gaming industry, they never slowed down. So what's there for us today in the age of modern gaming? Well, everything. Of course, considering that you can find a graphics card. Today, we are seeing games with ultra-realistic graphics. An example can be Metro Exodus 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, and of course, we can't forget Cyberpunk. Today's computers can handle almost everything you throw into them. Also, thanks to AMD, we are back in CPU competition once again, which is actually giving a huge uplift to computing power. Not only that, even our smartphones are now becoming a tool to play games and entertain. Popular games like PUBG and Call of Duty Mobile are gaining a lot more popularity on touchscreen devices. But still, we aren't quite convinced that our handheld devices have enough computing power to actually give us a PC or console-like experience in gaming. Even game streaming is popularizing quite a lot after the pandemic. You get the idea, more GPUs. Now, what does the future hold for us? Well, general advancements in technology and more realistic graphics are the way to go for PC or console gaming. Heck, we all might just stream the whole game over a server, but that might not be for everyone, as latency is always an issue. Some of us like to think that mobile is everything in the future. Well, that's a good argument, kind of, but that might not be so true. As said before, mobile gaming lacks true immersion. Also, according to a recent VentureBeat article, mobile gaming is already witnessing its first slump. Revenue growth has slowed, and the cost of doing business and distribution costs have also risen dramatically over the last few years. So what else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we think in the future, virtual reality will be like the gaming PCs of today. Yes, there are pros and cons to VR, but when you think about it, we as humans generally prefer those things which have the most immersion, and one thing which VR can do best is immersiveness. But don't worry, VR isn't going to replace your PC, but it will certainly become an everyday tool for you to switch into and out of to play video games. Next time on Discover Zen, we will be discussing the past, present, and future of virtual reality gaming. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, click that like and subscribe button. Let us know in the comments below what you think virtual reality will look like in the future. Until next time, friends,